again to this series on the wisdom of impermanence. I'm going to start with a story again, and there is this very old story about a famous rabbi living somewhere in Europe. And so one day he was visited by this man who had traveled by ship from New York to see him. And the man came to this great rabbi's large house somewhere on a street in one of the European cities, and he was directed to the rabbi's room, which was in the attic of this large house. And he entered to find the master living in a room with a bed, a chair, and a few books. Now, this man, he had expected much more. So, after greetings, he asked the Rabbi, where are your things? So, the rabbi asked in return, well, where are yours? So the man says to him, but Rabbi, I'm only passing through. And the master answers, so am I. So am I. So coming back to what Lord Buddha had said about the elephant's footprint being the greatest of them all, and in the same breath he had said that the awareness of death is the greatest of the mindfulness meditations. And we're going to talk a little about it, because within this awareness, within this powerful mindfulness of death meditation, all other things can be understood. So when one confronts this fact of death, we know that we will die, right? That's a fact. It's absolutely certain. The only thing that's uncertain is the time. Then the question is, well, what is death? So someone went to this Zen master and asked him one day, what happens when you die? And he said, I don't know. And so this person said, but aren't you a Zen master? And he said, yes, but I'm not dead yet. So there are several ways that one looks at death in different wisdom traditions. And one way to look at it is one thing becomes the cause of the next. It's like if I were to give you an example, like if you strike a match and light a candle and you blow the match out and then take the candle and light a lantern and blow the candle out. And if I were to ask you, is the flame in the lantern the same as the match, or is it different? Neither is true. The flame becomes the cause for the next flame, and so forth. So each thing that we do in this life or in other lives, it is said, becomes the patterns through which our life evolves. And one can see it in one's daily experience. The ways that we think and act become the patterns for the future. So that's just one way of looking at what death is. Tagore wrote a poem, Rabindranath Tagore, he wrote a poem about death being like the morning star that vanishes with the rising of the sun. There is another Buddhist monk called Ajahn Chah. He said, there is no such thing as death. No one is born and no one dies. It's all an illusion of separateness. He said that we are the same material cycled over and over. So there are different ways of understanding death. And then there's another way to understand death. And then there's this another story that I'm going to share. A man came to see Lord Buddha and paid his respects and said, you are a Buddha, aren't you? So Lord Buddha said, yes, that's right, that's me. So the man said, fine, good, I have some questions for you. I want to know what happens when you die. And the Buddha asked him back, The Buddha asks him, "Why would you like to know this?" And so this man answers, "Because knowing this, then I will know how to live properly." So the Buddha again said to him, asked him another question. He said to him that, "Let me ask you, suppose there are many lifetimes, as is taught in various great traditions, and that the deeds and actions of this life carry over in some way to others. How would you want to live?" So the man said, "Well, I would want to be then very generous with things because it would be a pleasure to do that. But also, it would sow the seeds of good karma so that I would receive many good things and generosity back to me in future lives." And he also said, "And I would want to pay attention and be careful with what I did because I would learn from it. But more than that, because it would lead to wisdom in a future life. And I'd want to be kind to people because it feels good now. And also because that would sow the seeds of kindness and love from others in future lives." So the Buddha heard this man and said, "Just so, my friend." And he said, "Now I ask you another question." And this time the Buddha asks him this question. Suppose it is that there's only one life. This is it. When you die, that's the end. How then would you want to live? So this man thought about it. And he said, well, of course I would want to be generous because it feels so good and you can't take it with you. So you might as well have that pleasure now. And I want to pay attention and be really mindful because of this is the only life. If this is the only life, each day is very precious. And I would want to live with great kindness because if it's the only time I could see the people around me, my family, the people I love, I would really want to let them know that I cared for them. And so the Buddha said to this man, "Just so, my friend." And he didn't answer him any further. What he left there was a sense of this mystery of death, which is right there next to us. But oftentimes it really takes a shock, a massive shock to awaken us to this fundamental truth. We live our lives as if we will live forever and almost in denial of the inevitability of our death. And the fact also that all our loved ones will one day depart from this world. So I'm sharing my personal experience here. I wake up one morning, it was December of 2012, and I find that my mother didn't wake up. She was in her mid 60s, very healthy, fit, never been to a doctor. She went to bed the previous evening and she didn't wake up the next morning. In a flash, the life that I knew, the life as I knew it, changed forever. And that 1 year after was very, very painful. I was extremely vulnerable, very tender, very raw, very shaky. And the grief, it would just come in waves, waves of grief, waves of sadness, feeling completely disconnected from my heart, from my body. It was just living like a zombie. And of course, I mean, there was this huge emotional and mental turmoil, but also, which of course gets expressed through the physical body. I was unable to hold food for almost a year. And so I was diagnosed, my physical body was diagnosed with severe nutritional deficiencies, excruciating pain in my limbs, and fatigue and palpitations. I mean, you name it, breathlessness, brain fog. How my feet hurt. Because I was carrying this frozen sea inside me. And precisely a year later, December of 2013, a serendipitous encounter with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and everything changed. The radiance, the serenity, it was just a moment. But the radiance, the serenity, and compassion that emanated from him, it touched something very deep inside of me. And I vividly remember my tears just streaming down my cheeks uncontrollably. And in that 60 seconds, that one moment, I witnessed my healing and transformation taking place. And from then forth, there was this experience of sensing that there was one way in which my mother had died, in another way in which there's more of her. Because wherever I went, I would be thinking about her and sensing her, could talk to her. It was like I was breathing for both of us. Some of you might have read Ramana Maharishi, this wonderful teacher, this great sage. His disciples were saying to him when he was dying of cancer, "Don't leave us." They loved him so much. And he had such compassion for everyone who came to see him. And he looked at them and he said, "Where could I go? Where could I go?" So there's this amazing thing with death, that there is both less of someone and yet more of them. That there's some way in which you can walk in the woods, you can walk in the mountains, and they are there to speak to. And this whole experience with impermanence, with death, it slowed me down, it softened me. My heart got softer. I became more quieter, more open. It made me more gracious. And of course, it reminded me of this powerful lesson of preciousness of life. And then over the years, these qualities of presence and simplicity, they just began to permeate more and more of my life. An inner love for the earth and all beings, it just began to express itself through my work. And at that time, I was a theater practitioner. It doesn't matter what work you do, but that's what began to happen. And it just made me look deeply into my heart, and I ask myself, what matters in the way I'm living? What are the values I have chosen to live by? Where am I putting my time, my strength, my creativity, my love? And how can I live with greater openness, with honesty, and even a deeper capacity to love? And through the years, I realized more and more what mattered most in my life was not fantastic or grand, but the moments when we touch one another, when we are there for someone in the most attentive and caring way. These moments of touching and being touched is what matters the most. So here I am, 11 years later, following a path with heart. And it all started with this very powerful lesson, with this direct experience of impermanence and death. We can try to see upheavals in our life as the chance of a lifetime. You know, every time our bubble is burst, and our bubble is burst oftentimes as we live. You know that. We all know that. We experience it. We have a chance to become more used to the nature of how things are. And I always tell everyone it's a matter of training. You know, you're building up a muscle day by day. And as we begin this muscle day by day, it enables us to meet whatever happens, wanted or unwanted, health or sickness, life or death, with cheerfulness and grace. So, this is not a lesson to be put off because it sounds morbid. Not at all. But what I'm essentially saying is we don't have to wait for enormous transitions to force us into reckoning with groundlessness. One great teacher said, the trouble is that we think we have time. We don't know how much time we have. So my question is, what would it be like to live with this knowledge that this may be our last year, our last week, our last day? And mindfulness of death is powerful when we begin to reflect on these questions, because it begins to bring about a deep questioning, a profound shift of identity. Who are we? Are we this body? And if we are not this body, can we honor it and awaken to some deeper truth, to that which is timeless or deathless? So, as we open to death, it helps us to open to life. Somehow, life, when we become more mindful of death, our life takes a different kind of meaning. Because we rest in the truth that we can't possess things, that we don't own anything. Our homes, our cars, our loved ones, not even our own body. There's a kind of maturity, you know. We grow in our spiritual practice, which is to say, in our hearts. Our growth and development in our spiritual practice is growth in our hearts. Our spiritual livingness, our spiritual life. There's a maturing that sees that joy and sorrow can't be separated. You know, it is said the unfathomable beauty of life and the ocean of tears, they come together. I often think about this. It's like, all of Shakespeare's last plays all speak of that, and you can't take them apart. And those who've seen death close at hand, you know it, for whom death has become an advisor. That's what Jack Cornfield calls when death becomes your advisor. Then one has this tremendous responsibility to the earth. It's like your soul deepens in that mystery. I'm going to read something from Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes writes, I have known rivers. I have known rivers. Ancient is the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. I bathed in the Euphrates, the Congo, in the Nile. My soul has grown deep like rivers. So death becomes not something to be frightened of, but something to remember. And to remember that death is not something that happens at the end of our life. It is happening every moment. We live in this wondrous flow of life and death, of birth and death, birth and death. The end of one experience is the beginning of the next experience. True or not? And then which quickly comes to its own end, leading again to a new beginning. It's like a river, continuously flowing. I read about this teacher, an elementary school teacher, somewhere in the US. Very fascinating story. She brought her 6-year-olds, her first grade students, out into the woods because they were talking about things dying. And she said children are very interested in that. She took them out in the woods and she said, find for me all the things that you can that have died. So, these 6-year-olds, so much of energy, they just went scurrying around, collecting old leaves and branches and snail shells and, also finding bones from animals that were left and nuts and things that were rotting. And they started to amass this huge pile of stuff. And so finally she said to them, let's look at it. Let's look at what you've collected. And they looked at it and they talked about it for a while. And this teacher said that as they discussed it, the question came, what do you think would happen if there wasn't death at all? If these things didn't die? And one of the little boys, a 6-year-old, said, well, there would be more and more trees and things, and there would be no room for us or the new ones. So the other things have to die to make space for us to come. Can you imagine how engaged we would be in our life and how appreciative of what we have if we start to have these conversations about change, about death, about impermanence in school? How much will it deepen our relaxation with life and death and impact all that we encounter, allowing us to touch each moment of this changing life and just allowing us to be there fully for whatever arises next? I was reading an interview of a caregiver at a hospice facility. And in the interview, she said that she had the privilege of being with people who are aware at the time of their death. Now, that has also become so rare because of the advancement of medical science. It's great. But then, oftentimes, people leave their bodies being tubed up, being wired, being heavily sedated. And she shared her experience about people when they come to the end of their lives and look back. And she said that most often what they ask, the questions that they ask are not how much is in my bank account or how many books did I write or what did I build, but the questions the people ask are very simple. And in all her years working as a caregiver, she said there were just three simple questions that everyone asked. Did I love well? Did I live fully? Did I learn to let go? And as I was listening to that interview, and I was thinking about these questions, and I realized that these are questions that we need to reflect on every day, not wait for the end of our lives. True or not? I mean, these questions go to the very center of our spiritual life, of our path with the heart, of our spiritual livingness. So we all need to take the time to have this conversation with our heart. Am I living wholly and fully from my heart? Have I let myself love the people around me, my family, my neighbors, my co-workers, my community, the earth upon which I live? Did I learn to let go? Did I learn, or am I learning to live through the changes of life with grace, with wisdom, with compassion? Have I learned, or am I learning to forgive and live from the spirit of the heart instead of the spirit of judgment? Really, really important questions for all of us, each one of us. The choices that I'm making, do they reflect what I deeply value? And in the end, I think all that we can do and give one another is that what's there in us, in our heart. So let's get ready for the practice. Sit comfortably, your back straight and relaxed, and just your breath flowing freely in and out. If at any point you notice your thoughts are carrying you away into your projects or into your anxieties or regrets or just dreaming, the moment you notice is a wonderful moment. That is a moment of mindfulness. And you can very gently smile and bring your attention back to the natural flow of the in-breath and out-breath. So let your eyes close, your beautiful eyes close, and feel your own body and breath. As I breathe in, I'm aware that this is my in-breath. As I breathe out, I'm aware that this is my out-breath. In-breath, out-breath. As I breathe in, I follow the full length of my in-breath from the beginning to the end. As I breathe out, I follow the full length of my out-breath from the beginning to the end. Full length of this in-breath, full length of this out-breath. Breathing in, my breath grows deep. Breathing out, my breath grows slow. Deep, slow. Deep, slow. Breathing in, I become aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I relax my whole body. Aware of whole body, relaxing. Breathing in, I know I am alive. Breathing out, I smile to life. In, alive, out, smiling. Breathing in, I'm aware of my eyes, allowing me to see all the many colors of nature. Breathing out, I feel so grateful to the wonders which are my eyes. In, aware of my eyes, out, feeling grateful to my eyes. Breathing in, I'm aware of my 2 ears, allowing me to enjoy the bird song at dawn. Breathing out, I feel grateful to the miracle of my ears. In, aware of my ears. Out, grateful. Breathing in, I'm aware of my mouth, which allows me to speak, to sing, to eat. Breathing out, I smile and relax my mouth. In, aware of my mouth. Out, I smile. Breathing in, I'm aware of all the cells in my whole body, made up of countless trillions of atoms. Breathing out, I smile in gratitude to the whole cosmos which has given rise to these atoms born in distant stars, brought together through the movement of galaxies and planets. Breathing in, aware of all the atoms in my body. Breathing out, smiling in gratitude to the cosmos. Breathing in, I feel peace inside me. Breathing out, I enjoy peace all around me. In, peace in me. Out, peace all around. Breathing in, I dwell peacefully in the present moment. Breathing out, I know that this is a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. And now, let us do some metta, some loving kindness meditation for many, many loved ones and friends and people who we know who have left their bodies, those who are no longer in their body and are here now, but in a different form. Hand on your heart. May you be well. May you be at ease in body and mind. May your heart be filled with loving kindness. May you be at peace. May you be free. And now let us direct this loving kindness toward oneself. So direct this metta, this loving kindness toward yourself. May I be well. May my heart be filled with loving kindness. May I be at ease in body and in mind. May I be at peace and free. And again, this metta, this loving kindness directed to anyone else, to the whole group here, and to all beings. May you all be well. May you be at ease in body and in mind. Wherever you are, may your hearts be filled with loving kindness. May you be at peace. May you let go. May you learn to be free. From my heart to yours, may you take this quality of metta, of loving kindness, into your day, into all your chores and all your interactions. And whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes with your beautiful smile.